Hello there. Do you know anything about NewsGuard or any similar fact-checking, truth-determining website used by advertisers the world over in order to determine who to do business with and who to blacklist? So apparently they have been blacklisting pretty much anyone who is anti-establishment on the left and right. Of course, it's mostly Trump supporters and the like, but there are some populist left-wing people and websites, organizations that are also getting their revenue cut off by simply being considered unreliable or outright misinformation by NewsGuard and their ilk. And so there has been a new I believe it's an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act that was just added, and it forbids the federal government to use NewsGuard and similar sources in order to determine the truth, and it also forbids them from working with those who are using NewsGuard and the like. So in this way, they are going to try and cut funding, because these things have been federally funded, to censorship. Basically, they're saying the government can't launder censorship through NewsGuard anymore, because it's illegal for the government to censor, obviously, under the First Amendment. So this is MSNBC. They're very salty about it, which is good. I like to see it. So, with conspiratorial attacks on federal disinformation experts, independent researchers, and media watchdogs, conservatives have been on a quest to quash efforts to help stop the spread of false and manipulative information online. I'll notice here that what you call false and manipulative never amounts to what your own network gets wrong. It's only ever what the opposition says that you don't like, even if it does get proven right. Like, for example, the Hunter Biden laptop story. You never accounted for it, or any similar stories. There have been so many about the last pandemic that turned out to be quite likely true with due time, and pretty much with everything. I mean, any single time that there is controversy, let's say, for example, about crime being of racial nature, maybe in the US, you can pretty much flip a coin, and even they're also even better than flipping a coin, that the mainstream media is wrong and or lying about it. Despite that, they're never considered to be fake news or misinformation. They're always credible by NewsGuard and its ilk. So it says here, Republicans succeeded in tying that crusade to the $886 billion defense bill that was just passed by Congress. On Tuesday, Representative Rich McCormick, Republican from GA, touted an amendment he succeeded in adding to the National Defense Authorization Act that appears to bar the Pentagon from using NewsGuard, an independent organization that rates news websites, except pretty much every single news site that is badly rated is right-wing and or populist, and if it's well-rated, then it's either a neocon or Democrat. Or similar entities to help the military determine where to place recruitment ads. In a tweet, McCormick proclaimed he was preventing the federal government from censoring speech they don't like. The NDAA now says that before the Pentagon can do business with an advertising firm, the firm must certify that it does not place advertisements in news sources based on personal or institutional political preferences or biases or determinations of misinformation. The bill mentions NewsGuard by name, along with the Global Disinformation Index and any similar entity. So, for example, it seems the Pentagon would be barred from working with an ad firm that uses NewsGuard to determine that right-wing outlet Newsmax is unsuitable for advertising because it's a cesspool of misinformation. How about the MSNBC being a cesspool of misinformation? No? NewsGuard doesn't think that? The deliberate targeting is noteworthy here. Representative Jim Jordan, a Republican from Ohio, and other right-wingers have targeted organizations like NewsGuard over baseless claims that they unfairly target conservatives. In reality, these organizations serve to root out misinformation regardless of who spreads it. Give me one example of a pro-establishment news outlet that was certified to be fake news or misinformation by NewsGuard. One. Give me one example of a populist, anti-establishment news outlet, whether left-wing or right-wing, that was certified to be actually trustworthy by NewsGuard. Give me one example. You don't have any. Why? Because NewsGuard always goes with the establishment regardless of whether it says the truth or not. It's very simple. If it's the Democrats in power, then of course anything they do is correct, and anyone who says otherwise is wrong and misinformation. And if it's Republicans in power, particularly the populist ones like Trump, then of course everything they do is evil, and anyone who says otherwise is misinformation and hate speech. This is the way it goes. They don't actually care about the truth of the fact. What they care about, of course, is who you side with. That's all. 100%. And NewsGuard is not trustworthy. I believe Tim Pool actually tries to limit himself to taking only information from NewsGuard certified news outlets, specifically in order to combat the notion that he is right-wing and untrustworthy. Despite that, the Democrats still call him pro-Trump, far-right, etc. Because even though he simply takes their own reporting and points out how it doesn't make sense, how it contradicts things they've said last week, how the body of the article contradicts the title, etc. Even though he essentially just fact checks them with their own sources, it's not enough, because it's never going to be enough. Anyone who says the wrong message to the viewers is misinformation. That's the entire purpose of that epithet. We didn't have misinformation in 2016, 2012. It didn't exist. Why? Because back then you had pretty much media hegemony by the left, and so they didn't need to try and banish to the shadow realm people who disagree with them. They would disagree with them using the same set of basic facts provided by the left, and therefore the left could control the conversation and the Overton window. Nowadays, the main problem they have is that essentially they can no longer create a fake reality in the minds of half the public. Half the public now lives in a reality much closer to the truth, to what we have today. Essentially, we consider facts that they do not want us to know. And this completely corrupts their style. The entire rise of populism and people like Trump is based around the understanding that we have been lied to for years by the media, and that we should not allow them to determine what events politically are important and in fact what even happened. So this is from Breitbart, which is of course certified by NewsGuard to be fake news. It says here, NewsGuard, a news filtering browser extension, recently partnered with Microsoft and run by neoconservatives, Obama Clinton alumni, and other assorted Trump haters, has advised advertisers to withdraw their businesses from websites on its blacklist of unreliable news websites. The list includes Breitbart News, The Drudge Report, and the Daily Mail. NewsGuard's tactic is similar to the ones used by far-left smear peddlers, sleeping giants, whose mission is to spread baseless accusations of racism and white supremacy to the advertisers of pro-Trump media outlets in order to put them out of business and silence their voice. Two of the sites on NewsGuard's list, Breitbart News and Daily Mail, are also prominent targets of sleeping giants. The effect isn't merely to silence pro-Trump media, it also ensures advertisers don't market their products to Trump voters, causing them to rely less and less on consumers in the heartland and more on progressive consumers who read establishment news sources. The ultimate result, corporations cater their products and corporate values even more to the latter and not at all to the former. By licensing the NewsGuard ratings, advertisers limit their advertising, including programmatic advertising, to sites that meet the NewsGuard criteria, explains the neocon to craft efficient and safe ad campaigns. Explain the neocon extension's official websites. Advertisers use this data and related information about sites to craft efficient and safe ad campaigns. Programmatic advertising is essentially the use of automation to purchase ads, as opposed to manual selection and placement of ads by humans. Adweek calls programmatic advertising the most important trend in advertising and estimates that 82% of ads will be programmatic by 2020. Of course, this is an article from a couple of years back, 2019 in fact. So essentially, for years, we have had news websites being blacklisted from receiving ad money by NewsGuard and similar websites. And they have not at all been even remotely close to objective. They aren't even pretending to be, they're just claiming it, that's all. This is why when you have left-wing sources completely fail time and again to prove the claims that they make, they still remain highly trusted by NewsGuard. On the other hand, any right-wing information source that isn't completely neocon, something that, let's say, Dick Cheney is going to trust and support, any such source is going to be deemed fake news, no matter what they say. I believe even if they only sourced the news from NewsGuard certified sources and just gave their spin on it, they would still be considered untrustworthy and fake news. It's just the way that this scam runs. I remember having a complete... I was laughing a lot when I saw the way that they treated, not NewsGuard, YouTube treated Crowder. Right? Crowder was going around during the aftermath of the 2020 election and just going door to door on certain ballots that had bad or fake addresses, because the rules were that you are not allowed to make claims that you can't substantiate about the 2020 election not being kosher. So Crowder just went, like I said, from door to door, and he was still banned by YouTube, I believe, demonetized, and maybe completely banned for a while. He came back later on. And this is the sort of thing that the left does when they talk about fighting misinformation and disinformation. Essentially, they have a narrative they want to push, they have an agenda, and anything that contradicts this is considered fake news, hate speech, misinformation, disinformation, and whatever else. And you're just not allowed to say it. You're just banned from saying it. Meanwhile, even if you lie outrageously, so long as you support the right people, you're perfectly fine and safe from any and all repercussions. And it's all funded by the government. I believe that the German government, the British government, the EU, and of course the Biden administration are all big sponsors of this sort of ad blackmail, let's say. Well, it appears that with Republicans taking over in the US, they're going to stop funding it, which means that either other participants are going to have to up their funding, or else they're going to simply have to stop doing this. I honestly doubt they'll stop doing this. I think that they'll just get the money from somewhere else. But it is still putting pressure on these groups financially, which in my opinion is a positive. It's also lowering their prestige. If the federal government no longer works with them and is in fact hostile to them, then it is less likely that corporations are going to use their services, which is of course a boon if you are trying to tell the truth in a world beset by mainstream media censorship. It's truly amazing to me that you can just lie outrageously on pretty much everything and then claim to have the facts on your side. I remember that they outright told people to not do their own research. The most dangerous words in the English language. Do your own research. Or do you remember the media telling you that you can't read Hillary Clinton's leaked emails? It would be illegal for you to do so, only the media is allowed to do it. It's just, they constantly want to be the gatekeepers of truth, deciding for you what you are and are not allowed to hear and consider the truth. And this is just another attempt to do so, being thwarted, at least partially, by the rise of Trump and populism, which is necessary precisely because of the existence of groups like NewsGuard and MSNBC. If they weren't so intent on deciding for me what I am and am not allowed to hear, who I'm allowed to listen to, and who is saying the truth, if they weren't so authoritarian and censorious, I wouldn't feel the need to even speak about the subject. I would completely ignore it. It's precisely because they can't leave well enough alone. It's the determination to control and micromanage every aspect of human life that gives rise to their enemies. They create us constantly. Well, I hope you found this video at least somewhat informative. Thanks for watching, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.